The Indian Regional Navigation Satellite System, IRNSS, or simply the NaviC, which is a navigation positioning service provider similar to the GPS of the US, seems to have failed to a great degree in achieving its goals. Of late, India sent another satellite to join the constellation of satellites which provide these services. But unfortunately, that has also failed. You know, the launch of that satellite was a milestone in the history of ISRO because that was the 100th rocket launched by the ISRO. But unfortunately, that satellite also failed to reach the desired orbit. It was not because of the failure of the launch vehicle, but because of the failure of the thrusters of the satellite, that the satellite failed to move to the desired inclination or the orbit. You see, this seems to be baffling because India is now considered to be on par with even the US and China or the European Union when it comes to space. Of course, in the case of launch vehicles, India is still to master the technology of semi cryogenic engines. But in the building of satellites and every other aspects, recently India conducted an experiment which successfully docked two satellites. So India is now considered to be a very advanced power. But so what could be the reason for India's failure in fully operationalizing a a positioning service? This is a serious issue. Let's take a closer look into what is happening. Welcome to Insights. I am Hari Kumar. India conceived its own or indigenous positioning system in about 2006. That was following some bitter experiences during the Kargil War. During the Kargil War, the US refused to part with certain details as part of the GPS subscription. That actually would have helped Indian military to thwart the attempts of Pakistan, and that would have made India's victory in Kargil much more easier. But the US simply refused to provide such details of Pakistani forces entrenched on the heights. So then only India realized that the country needed to build its own navigational system, and the work for that later started. From 2011 till date, India has sent, including the latest one, 12 satellites, and unfortunately, only 6 of them are a total success, and the remaining 6 have either totally failed or they failed partly. Initially, the problem was the failure of rubidium clocks, atomic clocks used in the satellites, and India couldn't do much about that. There was no other issue, and afterwards, India built its own atomic clocks, and India overcame that glitch also. You see, but there is still a question because India brought rubidium or atomic clocks from the same company that supplied atomic clocks to Galileo, the European Union system, navigational system, where it had failed. So ISRO went for the same clock, same company that gave uh, malfunctioning clocks to the Galileo system. So the question is why ISRO selected the same company for rubidium clocks. But it goes to the credit of ISRO that it has been able to develop own atomic clocks. But the latest problem is not related to that. Actually, the latest problem is the failure of the thrusters of the satellite. You know, if it was the problem of the launch vehicle, it could be understood because the LV-3 launch vehicle 2, which launched this satellite, was considered to be a problem vehicle earlier. It was actually called the naughty boy, and actually that has been corrected, and that launch vehicle worked perfectly. But then came the problem of these thrusters. According to newspaper reports, some sort of there was a problem with the valves of the, you know, the the thrusters, and that caused the whole problem. But because of this, the racing of the orbit could not be done. Now the LV2 launch vehicle put the satellite in, the geotransfer orbit, from where it has to be moved to the geosynchronous orbit, and that couldn't be achieved, and that is the reason for the present problems. And now it seems that it is almost impossible to correct the glitch, and the satellite will have to be repurposed for some other thing. Otherwise the satellite is a perfect satellite, but it is not suited for the purpose for which it was envisaged. Now, there are certain reports that the lack of coordination between different agencies associated with the ISRO or associated with the mission has resulted in this major glitch. You know, now India will have to wait for the launch of another satellite. So, as I said, India has launched a sum of 13 satellites, of which 6 or 7 failed. And this is a very costly miss. Actually, so much money has been spent for establishing a positioning and navigational service, and India couldn't still achieve that. This is a matter of shame and a matter of concern also, because it is not just for the military purposes, it is for the ordinary man also. This can be used on mobile phones also. The NaviC is supposed to be operational not just within India but around 1500 kilometers around the country. And because of this, we are still forced to use the GPS, and partly perhaps the defense services could be using that, but definitely the NaviC services is not accessible to the layman through his mobile phones at present. So I think India will need to wait for many more years to get a fully operational NaviC system. This is really a matter of concern. Why, despite the repeated failures, ISRO failed to correct this? I think there should be a thorough introspection, and ISRO has been a much extolled agency because of its extraordinary success, and that too at a minimal cost. But this has to be corrected. I think the whole country is waiting for that. Hope ISRO will be able to pinpoint the glitches in its system. It is not a technical incapability because ISRO is fully capable for this mission. But unfortunately, perhaps because of the lack of coordination or organizational issues, this has happened. Hope they will correct it soon. Meet you with updates. Till then, goodbye.